From downtown Decatur, it's the Faber Files. Hello, I'm your host, Bill Faber. Because democracy demands debate, we present this program of public issues and interests. A conversation on broadcast TV, conversations heard nowhere else in our community on broadcast TV. Conversations about important matters that concern our community. This evening's guest is Julie Pangrac, who is the director of Project READ here in Decatur. This is a very important project, and we're just delighted to have Julie with us. Hi, Julie.
Hello.
Welcome to the Faber Files.
Thank you very much.
Project READ, what an important project for our community, the adults and the older teens, over 17.
Yes, we can serve anyone who's 17 who is not enrolled in school. And our ages range, I think we've had students as old as 90. Everyone always has that desire to want to be able to read for themselves, to want to not to have someone interpret for them. And that desire never really goes away for many people. And we can solve it for them.
So your organization finds that folks, the adults who have gone through school, can't read.
Yes.
What's going on?
Well, I'm not an expert in that area. Of course there are theories, but I think you'd have to talk to people in that area. There are all kinds of reasons, I know, and many of them are different things are happening to students at different ages. Many of the people who can't read have grown up in poverty. Mm-hmm. Many of them, it's a generational thing. So if mom didn't read to them, or grandma. I mean, it can be 3 and 4 generations.
Really? Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's a learning disability. My son was a non-reader.
Mm-hmm.
He had a mother who read, but he had dyslexia. And so he had to have a special kind of instruction to be able to read. The one thing that most of our students do have in common is they are intelligent. And we tend to think if someone can't read, that they're either not trying or they aren't smart enough to learn how to read. And we found out that isn't the case. There are other circumstances that are happening. And when they come to us, we're able to solve some of those.
So if we have a viewer who is interested in Project READ,
yes.
to be, for example, a student,
yes.
because they wanted to learn how to read, what
right.
are the steps they should take?
They need to call our office. Mm-hmm. We often have mothers and grandmothers and caseworkers and whatever who call and say, can you get this person in? And we say they have to call for themselves. They have to want it, because it is very intense work to learn how to read. And so they call us at 423-READ or 423-7323. I got that right. I'm not sure now. And then we ask all kinds of questions. We don't just put a student in a class. In fact, we don't have classes. We put them in with a tutor one-on-one. And so we're trying to find out, who are you? What are you missing? How do you learn best? How can we help you, not just everybody?
Yes.
And so we'll ask lots and lots of questions. We'll set up an intake and an interview, and we'll keep assessing, finding out what they know until we're ready to assign them to a tutor. The bad news is we have over 100 on the waiting list.
100 students who want
yes,
to learn to read.
Who want to learn to read, and many who haven't called because they know that we have a waiting list. We get through it as quickly as we can, but our capacity is lessened as funds have lessened, and we have a wonderful core of volunteers, but it's also very staff intensive to make sure that we're putting the student in the right program with the right tutor, and that both the tutor and the student are getting the help that they need.
For some, that might be a very difficult and perhaps embarrassing phone call to make.
The shame that the students feel was what I think surprised me, and it surprises many of our tutors. And that shame started, and the fact that they couldn't read started in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. And our students feel, I'm different than everyone. In fact, they think they're the only one in the whole school, in all of Decatur, in the United States, that can't read. Because we don't talk about not being able to read. We say, I can't do math, and there's no shame. We say, I'm a horrible speller, and that's okay. But we don't say, I can't read. Because again, it goes back to, we kind of think, well, if you can't read, you're either really lazy and not trying, or you're not smart enough. And that isn't the case, but that's what the person begins feeling at a very young age. then they not only feel the shame of I'm so stupid, they feel the fear of what if someone finds out? What if my peers find out? What if my spouse finds out, my employer? And so they're spending all this energy trying to hide that they can't read and feeling an intense shame. So yes, many of them tell us, I got to the parking lot the first time, but I couldn't walk in.
Yeah.
Or I got up to the hallway, but I couldn't get through the doorway. And I made the call or attempted to make the call many times. So if they can get to us, we can alleviate some of that fear and that shame.
So let's assume there's a viewer out there who would like to get involved with Project
Yes.
Read. Wouldn't their next question be, can I afford it?
And yes, they can afford it because it is offered free, and the materials are offered free. We're supported, in half of our funding comes from a Secretary of State grant, and that's usually $67,000 a year. And the Secretary of State is the head librarian for the state. And Jesse White, because of his work in Chicago and his work with the tumblers and everything, said, I'm very interested in literacy, and he became very interested in adult literacy. So he manages those grants and the money that goes out to different agencies. And so then we supplement that funding with fundraising, with other grants, with generous donations from local organizations. We're always looking, unfortunately, for more money, but the community has been very good about keeping us open. But that's why we can offer it free, because, again, illiteracy and poverty often go hand in hand.
Sure. And if you can get someone to learn to read, they
Yes.
can get a job easier.
Yes.
And then if they have a job, they can start paying taxes.
Yes.
So it's a good
And
thing.
that is what happens. So that we used to just see Project Read as a place to come and learn how to read. And then we started looking at a much broader picture. So first of all, that picture became, we're going to also do math, because there are even more people stuck with math. And then there are also, if we teach someone to read, almost everything that they're going to do after that, with a job, with going to Richland, with going to job training, is going to require some competency in math, even if it's only just the placement test to get into it. So we started doing math too. And then we also started seeing, whoa, we're not changing this person, we're changing the family, because we had the mothers telling us, I'm helping my daughter for the first time with homework. I'm reading to my preschoolers, and grandmothers and grandfathers told us that. And then they served as role models. Mom's going to school, mom's learning, mom's helping me. And the parents, the one place they wanted to avoid was school. That had been a horrible experience for them. And many of them before couldn't read and understand all the print that was coming at them from the school. So now as those skills raise and their confidence, they're saying, I'm going to parent-teacher conferences. I'm interacting with the teacher. And they have the confidence now and the skill to do that. And then it doesn't become an ending, because now they're going, oh yeah, Project Read is just the jumping off point. Because what they really want is to be independent. And that does mean a job with a living wage. And that means, can I go to Richland and get a certificate? Can I and get a degree? Can I raise my math scores at Caterpillar and get a better job? And it's a really good transition with Richland, because we are a Richland program. And we have an office at Richland. We work with students at Richland. Richland provides support for all that we do. And we have our main office at the Decatur Public Library, which is very good because that's right near transportation. It's right in the middle of the city.
So you're saying many of your students meet their tutor at the library?
Almost all of them will. We do tutor at some other places, as I said, at Richland, Central Christian Church with a family literacy program. We may do things at Workforce. So we work with other partners, but most of them come to the Decatur Public Library.
If a student were a little bit afraid of being embarrassed that
Yes.
others, their friends might see them doing this lesson, is there privacy where they're where the
Well,
lessons
first of
are
all,
done?
they can always say, I'm coming to the library, which that's much better than coming to a place that definitely looks like we're going to work on reading. And that's very important to them. They talk again about that embarrassment. So they're coming to the library, they end up at our center, and then there are individual cubicles, there's much privacy. People do not have to know at all what they're doing, and you cannot tell the difference between our tutors and our students. As I said, our students are very intelligent, and they have coped in ways that you and I have not learned how to cope, because we depend upon the printed word, and we depend upon the notes that we take and the signs that we read, and the written word becomes our memory. When our students haven't been able to do that, they have used their minds in ways we've never exercised our minds to be able to remember things and figure things out.
How many students are with tutors now, presently?
What we have is they're constantly turning over, because with Project Read not being an end but a beginning, it's let's get you in and get you out. So at any given time, we may have 50 that are being tutored at a given time, a given week or whatever, but we're going to see 150 or more students during the year. And again, the goal is let's get your skills up and move you on. And we have an excellent rate with that. And we figured out it's 10 times what the national average is in having students succeed. And so they're coming in and they're topping out at post-secondary levels so that they're ready to go to Richland or get a good job. They're doing that in 40 hours or so.
Now, your literature says that 40 hours of tutoring will advance the student how many grade levels reading?
The average is 4 grade levels.
So if they read at first grade level, they'd be at 5th grade level?
Yes, but practically what is happening is we have many that are gaining that way below 40 hours. Or they're spending 40 hours and they're going from 3rd to 12th.
Really?
So that they're getting out in less than 40 hours. Mm-hmm. But we have students, when we say that they're not reading at a level that is functional for them. So it may mean that we do have students who don't know the alphabet. We have students who can read all the words they've memorized, but that's very limiting to them, because it's a lot of those are shorter words. They begin to have trouble with multiple syllable words, and so they can't really make sense of what they're reading. We have other students who can read all of the words, but they have no comprehension. And so each one is going to take a different approach and take more time. Obviously, the person who comes in not reading any words and not knowing, they're going to be with us for a couple years. And someone who can read all the words and we're working on comprehension, if they have background knowledge and good vocabulary, they'll be one of those who's going to gain 8 or 12 years in a short amount of time. So we're talking about averages, but we are seeing that people are coming in and making that 12th grade level and moving on in that 40 hours or less.
So your student is working with a tutor.
Yes.
And your tutor has as support for the tutor a specialist and a mentor. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, and we found out that was very important in gaining also. Our tutors and our staff, we're all readers. Or some of our tutors and some of our staff are mathematicians. We're on automatic. So we don't know always how to teach someone else. And our problem was, can we get to the level in our minds where our students are? And so we had to learn how to think like someone who didn't get it. And that's what we have to help our tutors do. Because we're kind of used to saying, well, you do this and this and this and this and this. Or let me give you the answer and now you should remember it.
They said that's why Michael Jordan, the basketball player, was a bad coach, because he could play but couldn't teach.
Exactly, exactly. So that's where our tutors need the help. They're excellent in the what, but we have to help them with the how. And that's where we support. The other thing that staff does before the students get to the tutor is this 6 to 8 hours of assessment to find out what really do you need. We're not going to do this if you don't need it.
You're assessing the student.
We're assessing them. We're finding out, how do you learn, how do you think? What are things in your life that are going to keep you from coming here? Transportation, child care, and we can work with other agencies that can help with that.
If I may just interject about transportation.
Yes.
You know, folks who don't need public transportation, they have a car, so they have a reliable car, they have no idea of the extraordinary effort and planning
It is.
that is needed to use the public transportation as your main means of getting around.
Absolutely. When I first started at Project Read, I said students are either early or late.
Mhm.
They're never on time. And I saw it as a character flaw.
Mm.
And I found out it wasn't a character flaw, it was public transportation.
Yes.
Because the chance that your bus is going to get in at 3 o'clock for your 3 o'clock appointment are pretty slim.
Yes.
It's going to get there much earlier or much later. And so now we got wise about that and we're able to adjust times.
Sure.
And the other thing is the cost, because
Yes.
it's a dollar bill to get there and a dollar bill to get home.
Sure.
And if you're coming, some people are going, well, do I spend that on public transportation or do I buy food?
Sure. Yeah.
So those are things
Sure.
that are barriers that
Right.
we have to deal with. And we have so many that walk.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, they will be able to tell that I walked in the rain and the snow and and all of the bad conditions
Sure.
to get there.
Yeah.
Because we instituted a tough love policy and said, you do have to be here, you have to be here on time, you can't be late, you can't be missing. Of course, there are situations that come up,
Sure.
but you have to let us know about those. And that increased the how quickly the skill level would rise, and it prepared them for that jumping off point that Project Read is, because now we're working on soft skills and saying, you've got to be there at school, you've got to be there on a job, and you're going to have to do that here.
So if the student became involved in your program and thought it wasn't for them, they would be free to withdraw with
Absolutely.
a penalty? Mhm.
And then what we tell them is, if you withdraw, you let us know. If you change your mind later, you won't go to the bottom of the
Okay.
list. But if you disappear on us,
Yes.
then when you call, you'll go at the bottom of the wait list.
What if a viewer says, I'm really interested in Project Read and I think I'd like to help, but it sounds rather difficult. What support do you offer for the tutors?
We give 15 hours of training. 6 of those are in the classroom. And then we are working with our staff so that we're mentoring that tutor. We're saying, you watch us tutor, we watch you tutor. Here's things you can read. Here's things you can watch. And come in and watch what's happening. And then what works out with our site at the library, because it's a beautiful, large site, and we're all there and can see each other, talk to each other, and immediately respond to each other. We say, if you're in that tutoring session and you have a problem, just come out and get us. Or meet with us afterwards, or talk with us beforehand.
Sure.
So that's very intensive, and we want to make the tutor very comfortable. The tutor wants to go in like the student and learn it all at once. And we have to tell the tutor and the student, that's not how brains work. You're going to have guidance. You're going to have repetition. And that both the tutor and the student need that.
So the viewer's watching and she
Yes.
says, I'm an administrative high up there at ADM. And,
Yes.
I've got a tough work schedule. I'm here at 8 in the morning. I don't leave till 6 at night. How could I possibly help? You got room for someone like that?
Because, again, of the funding and our capacity, we have lowered our hours. So our hours are 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, Monday through Thursday. And we have ended up closing on Friday, although, and on the weekends and on the evenings. We do have students that come in at 5, and we don't have any that come in at 6. We'll have staff stay on 2 nights so that people can start tutoring at 6.
Okay.
So you've got to fit in those parameters.
But there's some night sessions.
someone from ADM could do some other things that might help just with keeping the program running. They might do some research for us. And ADM, sometimes they're coming at their lunch hours.
Right.
We do have ADM employees. We do have them saying, how else can I help you? Or can I help you with fundraising? Can I help you with any kind of office work, research, looking for grants or
Sure.
anything like that, so we can find things. It does, I know some of our tutors have sometimes been frustrated because, they come for training in October and then it's February and they aren't matched yet. It isn't a real smooth, like, okay, now you've finished training and we get all of you
Sure.
matched immediately.
Sure.
Because we don't just put warm bodies with warm bodies. And because that tutor might just be available Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 o'clock. we've got to wait and find the student that fits them, fits their skills and whatever. But eventually the match happens.
If you had a teacher who had the summer off or a college student who had free time during the summer, could those folks be tutors?
Yes, they could, yes. And we would find students that we knew were going to move quickly, or many of the students have more than one tutor, because the more the student comes, the better it is. So we know that volunteers aren't going to come 4 days a week. Although we have had some that do, but we would then put them, giving a student an extra day during the summer, or put them with a student that we knew was going to make progress very, very quickly.
So if one of our viewers was interested in being a tutor, what
Yes.
would be their first step?
They would call Project READ.
Uh-huh.
We would find out what they're interested in doing, and it's 423-READ. And then we would tell them when we might be having the next training or how they might be able to help us. So it's that phone call. Or email at projectread.richland.edu. Go to our website, which again you could find by Googling Project READ Decatur, and there's a form there that they could fill out and say, I'm interested. Or stop by the library and come up to the second floor.
Or ask any library staff member about the program?
Absolutely.
Uh-huh. How did you get involved with Project READ, or this reading issue,
Yes.
Julie?
Well, I have always wanted to be a teacher. I can remember in third grade planning how I would be a teacher. So I have taught for over 40 years, and that's always been my passion. But I saw an advertisement for a literacy specialist 12 years ago, and I was ready for a part-time job, and I applied. 2 years later, I became the coordinator because the coordinator retired, and I had found out that I really liked this. But what really added to my doing it was having a son who was not a born reader. And there are kind of born readers in the sense that we are connected naturally in different ways. And some are connected better than others to be an artist or an athlete or a musician or a reader. And 60 to 80% of us are connected so that when we are exposed to print, we begin to read. But that means 20 to 40% don't have that connection, and it has to be made. So having my son, who was brilliant and who was very motivated and was not reading, made me do lots of research, find out about that, then find out that the best thing for almost all of those students is an intensive phonics program. And so I began teaching him phonics, began getting interested in that whole reading process because I had taught, but I'd expected everybody to be readers. And because the students were intelligent, they hid from me if they weren't. And so having taught him and realized there's 20 to 40% out there more who can't read, I became very interested in it and was kind of put in that situation to have the power to make the change.
Yes.
My son is now a writer. He makes his living
No
as a
kidding.
writer. So once someone learns how to read,
Yes.
he doesn't enjoy reading a lot. He'll read for his profession, and he'll read things that he's interested in. He'll never be a voracious reader like I am with fiction and, having hundreds of books around and whatever. And many of our students will not do that. Although they will read for pleasure, they'll read the paper, but they'll read for very utilitarian reasons. But they will be readers, they will be writers, and they will become mathematicians. If we teach people in the way that they learn best, according to brain research, according to evidence-based practices, they succeed.
Right, right. I heard an economist once say about the success of a nation's economy
Yes.
is not based on the top 10%. It is based on the performance of the bottom 80%. That's what drives the success of a nation.
And when we have a community where people cannot get jobs because of their lack of skills, they aren't contributing to the tax base because they don't have jobs. And the unemployment rate is high here, and we know that employers are saying, I need people with the soft skills and I need people with the foundational basic skills. And we've been involved with programs with Workforce, funded in part by the City of Decatur through a federal grant, that have said, let's raise these basic skills, then let's move them through to higher education. And we've just finished a manufacturing program and a health profession program that has put those students to work.
You know, Julie, I had the privilege of serving on the Decatur Public
Yes.
Library Board. And in this time of austerity where we see cuts, it amazes me how the library and the Project Read budgets would be cut or curtailed. We repair our streets, which are important, but there is nothing more important to our society, to our democracy, than literacy and the ability to read.
It is, and I think people who do read cannot imagine what it's like to not be able to read. They have a heart feeling for it, but they don't really understand the difficulty and how much we do it
Right.
automatically.
They should contact Project Read. We've had a
Yes.
wonderful discussion this evening. It looks like our time has run out.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Come back anytime, and good luck, Julie.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.